Hey folks, welcome to our spring 2022 product showcase. In my shop, as always today, is Paul Mayer of Tool Metrics. Paul's going to help us talk through a bunch of different tools. How you been, Paul?
Really well, George. Thanks for having me.
And you are quite the tool guy, so I'm excited to have you here because you end up, you look for your own site at a lot of different products, a lot of different tools. One of the things we've done, as we've done on past showcases, is we've done some videos ahead of time. So Paul and I are going to talk about each tool a little bit, and then we're going to go to those videos that we've already got shot and edited, and then we'll come back and we'll answer your questions and, I don't know, see what happens next.
Can't wait.
Ready to do the first one?
Really sure.
All right. Jump in wherever you like. Who's on first? The first tool that we're looking at is the Grizzly joiner planer, 12-inch cutter head. You have already given me some enthusiastic comments about this. So lay it on us. What do you like about this baby?
Well, I have a small shop, and so the ability to have a single footprint like this with big capacity, especially that size jointer. I have an 8-inch jointer, which is great, but having that much more, I do face jointing on everything. So having that kind of capacity of power.
So what we've got going here, it's where Paul's making the small shop comment is this is a combo jointer planer. So 12-inch cutter head here under the hood, it's unplugged so we can have a look at that. And then you do a conversion, which we're going to do for you in a little bit, and this machine becomes a planer. So in one footprint, and that's where, like Paul said, in a small shop, having that ability to have two tools in this one space is crazy cool. Dust collection is good on it. It's a huge motor. It's a 5-horse motor. So especially for face joint and stuff that wide, and for using it as a planer, that 5-horse motor is going to be a great thing to have, a great power source. So let's do this. Let's go to the video that we already shot, and then we're going to come back and we're going to show you how this machine converts from a jointer, where it is right now, into a planer. Lots of cool stuff going on with this Grizzly joiner planer. The big thing is you've got two tools in a one tool footprint. So it's just what it sounds like. It's a jointer. You just saw me joint an edge. And with a changeover, we can also use it as a planer. So let's talk about a couple great things. Unplugged, so we can do this. It's a 12-inch cutter head. What's great about that is the ability that it provides to face joint really wide stock. In the perfect world, when you're squaring out lumber, you're starting with face jointing and then going from there to planing. So the larger the cutter head in your joiner, the larger piece, of course, that you can face joint. Taking that a step further, it's a V helical cutter head, and it's got carbide inserts. So a bunch of cool stuff going on there. Helix, the benefit to that is that at some point, if you were learning to use a hand plane, somebody might have told you you can get a little better result from a hand plane by skewing the plane as you're planing an edge rather than attacking the wood straight on. Similarly, maybe you've been using spiral router bits instead of straight flute router bits. The addition of a helical head to a planer and a joiner, same thing. It gives us a lot better surface finish on the material that we're working on. With carbide inserts, those open the doors to doing more stuff with our joiner and our planer. High-speed steel, tool steel, jointer knives have some limitations. With carbide, of course, there's very little that we can't cut. With these, we're not going to change jointer knives. We're simply going to rotate cutter heads to a fresh spot. And because they're 4-sided, you can do that 4 times, 3 times besides the edge we're on right now, instead of going through and swapping out jointer knives. And because of the way they're indexed in here, when we rotate that, we're not going through that whole process of then aligning knives with the outfeed table on a jointer. So it really adds a lot of simplicity. And again, with the helical head, we gain a boatload in surface finish there. Now, big benefit, face jointing wide stuff, like this piece of hard maple. First pass, gate and ground. You saw the way that machine handled this wide piece of hard maple. Part of that is because this is a 5-horse motor. So you're going to have to work pretty hard to slow that baby down. Sequentially here, what we'd want to do is get one face flat. I just face jointed this one. It's dead flat now. Then do our conversion to make this into a planer and come back and plane the other face. That's going to have both faces parallel to each other and cleaned up of any saw marks. So we'll do that conversion and then come back and look at the planer function. With the jointer planer conversion done, and don't sweat it, we're going to show you that in just a second. Now we're ready to plane our material. And again, sequence of events, joint one face, plane the opposite face. So still 12-inch width capacity here and all the benefits of that carbide insert V helical cutter head. Our capacity in this direction for thickness is 9 inches. That is significant for a planer. So I love that great depth of cut we can get in that direction. One of the things that's always so fun about changing a piece from rough sawn to smooth is, holy buckets, is that pretty. This piece has got some nice curl going here. It's got some curl going here. And again, benefit of the helical cutter head and the great cut we're getting off of those carbide inserts is that is a really, really pretty board. So again, we've got a lot going on here. One is 2 tools, 1 footprint. Additionally, a lot of good features in here. 5-horse motor, 12-inch wide head, great thickness capacity on the planer. And of course, for face jointing, the great capacity that we get there as well. So a lot of tool here in a really small space. Now, as promised in the video, we are going to change this from a jointer to a planer with help from my lovely assistant. And here's the deal. I'm looking at comments on the laptop. I recognize we've got an audio issue or two here, and we're doing the best we can. We are speaking up as much as we can. A little bit of a mic issue. Here we go. Ready for this, sir?
I'm ready.
Don't blink because you could miss it. The other thing I want to point out while we're doing this is if you have a question on the Grizzly machine, this is your opportunity to ask that question and we will do our best to answer it. You take offense? That's a great one. All right, so step one is the guard comes off, the fence comes off. Now I'm going to reach under and there's a lock right here that's holding the infeed table in a down position. Whoop. Same thing on the outfeed table, this handle right there. Look at Chris move into that shot for us. Now, a couple things. One thing that's crazy cool right now is we're looking at the cutter head right here. Again, the machine is unplugged. Looking at the cutter head. This looks a little scary, maybe. But when we're in this position, which is tables up, that guard not in place, the machine won't run. And that is a crazy cool feature that, a crazy cool safety feature. Until I flip this up, we don't have a planer. So that's very, very smart on Grizzly's part to set that up this way. So even with me talking, that was what, a minute and a half maybe of changeover. And of course, if I wasn't like talking my way through it, it would be much faster. So in reverse, well, let's talk about the planer a little bit. And a lot of this stuff was in the video that they just saw, but significant thickness capacity here on the planer. And again, with that 5-horse motor, plenty of power to make the cuts you want to make, heavy duty cuts on the planer. Then you and I are both big advocates of the spiral heads with the carbide inserts. And with these, if you're not familiar with it, with carbide inserts, you have 4 opportunities to, I don't want to, whatever, how are we going to say this? 4 opportunities to dull them, or, you know, like you've got 4 edges on each knife. So one part of that that's cool is if you hit a nail in the middle of the head, you could just change one cutter, not have to change the entire knife like you would on a conventional knife planer. And then 2, if you're looking for a fresh edge on every one of these, you loosen the bolt, turn it 90 degrees, loosen the bolt, turn it 90 degrees. So that pain of resetting knives, you don't experience on this because the cutters are indexed right into the cutter head.
And not only are they so simple to change, but you almost never have to do it. They last like 10 times longer than traditional high-speed steel. So you're really going to get a lot of longevity out of those cutters.
It's a great feature. And then that with that shape of the head, again, as was mentioned in that video, that shearing type cut that we get from these is it really optimizes the surface finish. And that's why I picked that chunk of maple that we worked with in the video, is because you could really see there just how well that comes out. Now, while the hood is open, it's locked open. So that's great because you don't want that to come down when you're not ready for it to come down. But in reverse, it's very simple. So this would be up to provide dust collection. We do our planing. Now we want a joiner again. So we do this, lock that, and then this, lock that. Thank you, Vanna. And you're back to being a jointer again. Ernie is ready to take us to the next tool. Are you ready to go to the next tool?
I'm ready if you and Ernie are.
All right, let's do it. The Shaper Origin has been in the marketplace for a while now. I don't know what year they actually rolled that out. I remember being at the show where it came out. And it's, you know, every once in a while you run into stuff at woodworking shows where it's a showstopper. And you wonder what's with the big line around that one spot at the show. And that year it was the Shaper Origin. So if you're not familiar with this tool, it's a handheld CNC. And the way this works is that this tape is put down on the surface that you're going to machine. When we turn the Origin on, it's going to read that tape and have the opportunity to find out where in space it is. And then using that, it's going to help you locate the tool path and do whatever work it is you're trying to do. One way to make that happen is the way we've got it set up here, which is I put tape on this board. You're about to see that in a video. in this case, this is the workstation, and this is crazy cool. The dominoes are here. They're built into the surface. And then I would use the origin over here. So it's a little bit, you know, think of a mortise jig, a dovetail jig. That's basically the system we've got here, except it's way more than just mortises and dovetails. So one of the things that intrigues us with this is that you find that especially with CNC work, people are maybe a little bit stumped or intimidated by the fact that they've got to do the design work. They've got to figure it out. And you've got a laser in your shop, but no CNCs. So Paul's got some level of comfort with this, but for people who don't want to have to do a bunch of design from scratch, the thing we really wanted to highlight here was what's called the Shaper Hub. And Hub is a hub of information. It's incredible. So there's all sorts of stuff in the can. You're going to see it on the video in a second. I think it was, do you remember, was it 1,600 projects in the hub?
Huge number.
Yeah, something like that. So you can access those online. And then amazingly, this is on Wi-Fi. Of course, my computer is connected to the World Wide Interwebs, and I can just send that file to the origin and I can make the cuts. It's inherently in this hard drive. So instead of me talking about it, because I'll go on and on forever, let's have a look at that video, and then we'll come back and we'll talk some more about this. What I really like about the Shaper Hub aspect of the Shaper Origin is it overcomes the question of how do I design my projects? What if I want to make a table? How do I get started? There are so many projects. In fact, looking at my screen here, 1,564. There are a bunch of projects that are already available to you online. And all you have to do is find that project, get the file to the origin, and we're ready to cut without you having to do any design work. This is a wonderful shortcut. So let's have a look at what's going on here. One of the things I want to point out is I'm already logged in to my Shaper Origin account. And as we go through here, we can look at different types of projects that are available. We can sort, we can search. So let's search for tables. What'll happen is once we get into the zone that we want, we're in tables. When you click on that, there's a picture of what the finished product is going to look like. The files over here are the files that we need in order to cut that. So someone has already figured all of this out. So this whole aspect of how do I get a design to then talk to my origin, it's already been taken care of here. We're going to see in just a second how to get these files to your machine. Another item in the drop-down menu here is hardware. So when I go there, look at this. Furniture connector. So what this is all about is hardware that you might use in your projects that rather than hand cut mortises for this quadrant hinge, we can go to that file, grab the origin file that goes with that hinge, and use that to cut the recesses, the mortises that are required for that quadrant hinge. And what a great service this is. There's all sorts of stuff included in this hardware page. Just some examples there that are really going to simplify you getting hardware installed in your projects by doing that with your origin. And again, it's all available here for you in the Shaper Hub. So for us today, simple sample project. Let's do a push stick. In projects. Have some to choose from there. Let's go with this one. Once we're in that project, we can see the files that we need. Don't sweat those too much. I'm going to show you how to get those to the origin. There are some more pictures of what it is that we're about to do. So you have a good idea of what direction the project's going to go. Now, when we know that we want to do this, here's an amazing aspect. Remember I said earlier, I'm already logged into my account. I click on sync to origin. Our work here is done. These files, because my laptop is on my Wi-Fi, my origin is on my Wi-Fi, those push stick files are now there. What a simple way to transfer data. Now, if you want to, you can download the files, put them on a flash drive and bring the flash drive to the origin. But if you don't have to, why would you do that? Let's get a little more setup done here. And then we're going to come and run that file on the origin. Remember that thanks to the beauty of Wi-Fi, the file from the laptop has now found its way by syncing into the origin. Here on the origin, I have already taken the time to scan the dominoes. So the origin knows where in space it is. I've set my parameters for cutting. We're going to go 1/4 inch deep using a 1/4 inch diameter bit. I've already Z0'd there. Now, here's the gee whiz part. If you didn't have enough gee whiz already, import. There's my push stick file. Within that folder, we could do one of the push sticks, the other push stick, the other push stick, or you can do all three. So what it's done there is it's grabbed that pre-designed folder for me, and all I have to do is locate it on my workpiece. You can see the plywood through the background here. That's where I want it to go. And now either touch screen or using the trigger, I place that file. Boom. And right there, we're ready to cut. What you can see on the screen there inside the bullseye is the tool path. And again, we've talked about the ins and outs of these details of cutting with the origin before. So we're not going to hit on that again, but I am going to cut out these push sticks and we're ready to go here with round one. Get rid of that. That is so cool that you can grab one of the nearly 1,600 projects that are on the hub, sync them to the origin, and you don't have to sweat the design aspect because that heavy lifting's already been done for you. It's such an easy way to import projects that are turnkey and ready to go. How do you see the origin fitting into a woodworker shop?
it really opens up the possibilities, lets you think much bigger than you otherwise would. I think that they have really nailed it, not only on innovation, but on user experience and simplifying that experience of CNC and allowing you to take the CNC to the work and expanding the capacity of what you can do.
I think, I love the projects that are on the hub, but the hardware aspect is maybe the coolest thing, because some of that stuff would be, what's so cool is whatever, you buy like a sauce hinge or a Brasso hinge or whatever it is. And there's a great likelihood you're already going to find that in the can there. And that's just the kind of thing we're letting in, that intricate hardware for whatever, a mortise style lock or a lid stay, or man, that's where that kind of finesse that's going to come from those already being in place is absolutely, it's huge.
I love that hinge application. I also love, you see guys taking these and doing inlay into wood flooring and with confidence. And think about, what possibilities that kind of application opens up.
Yeah, it's a cool aspect that with a conventional CNC, you're going to bring the work to the tool, because you have to bring the work to the tool. And in this case, we're going to take the tool to the work. So you could be in the middle of a basketball gym and using this in order to do that kind of work. So I do want to do a little show and tell, because this is the board that we cut on the video with the push sticks. And it is just, this is a very simple application of the kind of stuff that's available on the hub, but it was a great example of the kind of things you can do and how easy it is to just sink that information in and pull it into the origin so you can use it here. All right, Ernie, we're going to the next one. Kreg, foreman. Pocket holes have become so, is it endemic or ubiquitous? I don't know. One of those words. Popular. How about that?
There you go. I understood that one.
Pocket holes have become so popular, and nothing wrong with using a pocket hole jig, but when you have 11 billion pocket holes to do, when you're doing a lot of pocket holes, and a great example would be if you're doing face frames for a kitchen full of cabinets, you are going to drill a lot of pocket holes. That's where the foreman comes in. So let's do, before we go to the video where we show a bunch of stuff, we'll do a little once over here. So the way this works is that our material is going to go under that hold down. A little bit of pressure from this. Lock that in place. And then when I pull the handle, the bit's going to come up and drill that pocket hole for us. And the benefit to this is that place, drill, place, drill. So in the video, we cover a lot of different aspects of the foreman. So let's go right to that video, have a look at that, and then we'll come back and talk some more about this product. Unless you've been living under a rock, you probably already know that pocket holes are an incredibly fast and effective way to put material together. May not know about the Kreg Foreman. This is creating pocket holes on steroids. This is an incredibly fast way to create pocket holes. Here's the deal. When I pull this lever, the drill bit comes up from the table. My material would be registered against that fence. And of course, the drill bit will be running, so it punches a hole in the back of our material. Here's how that looks. Position our material, bring down the hole down. Lock that in place. Then a lot of little things going on there. You may have heard a vacuum run when I ran the tool. I'm connected to a tool actuated vacuum because there's really good dust collection internally on this unit. So it's not throwing any of the shavings from the hole that we're drilling up around the environment here. On the fence, there are a bunch of things going on. One, there are measurements on here that you can use to register the edge of your material and uniformly place it. The other thing that you can do is take advantage of the stops. They're spring loaded, so when you're not using them, you can just ride right over the top of them. When you do want to use them, you can come against the fence, come against the stop, create your hole, come against the fence. I've got another stop on this side, hit that stop, create the hole to control that spacing. So one of the things that's nice about this is you're not having to mark your pieces in order to call out where the pocket holes go, because that really is done automatically for you by the fence. Fence positioning comes into play depending on the thickness of material that you're working with. So the way that we control how that hole ends up in our material is by moving the fence back for thicker stock. That's the 1.5 inch thickness position, and then moving it forward for thinner stock. So let's go back here to 1.5 inch, because we've got the capacity to go from 1.5 inch to 1/2 inch on the machine. So there I've got a thicker chunk of maple. Same, we'll get a little tension there. Lock that in place. Now the geometry of that, what's happening is it's controlling that hole position so that when the screw exits, it's exiting on the center of the thickness of the material. That's where your greatest strength in that pocket hole joint is going to come from, is from having the screw centered on your material when it exits that. Now we can keep it in the configuration it's currently in, which is there's a 3/8 drill bit in there, or we can change the guide and go a step bigger to use heavier duty screws. We can change the guide and use a different drill bit to go a step smaller. So for your 1/2 inch material, it would also be nice to go to that smaller scale drill bit. And again, for your thicker material, you maybe want to step up to that larger scale drill bit and guide so that you can use a heavier duty screw, smaller screw. It's easy to see on this where your pocket hole is going to end up, because we've got this guide in the table that shows you really exactly what's going to happen next. So in a case of this miter where I want to do pocket holes, I don't want the miter to, or I don't want the pocket hole to come through this edge over here. So first step, get my hole down set. And then just by watching the position of that guide in the table relative to the edge of my material, that's going to show me where that piece needs to go so that the hole doesn't exit that edge. Lots of cool stuff going on here. Very, very, very efficient way to cut pocket holes in a variety of thicknesses of material. And that's one of the cool benefits of this, is it's not a one-trick pony that's set up only for 3/4 inch face frames. It gives you the capability of putting pocket holes in many different thicknesses of stock. And of course, as I said, we can change the drill, change the guide to also accommodate smaller or larger screws beyond the 3/8 bit that's in there right now. Great repeatability from using the stops and from using the marks on the fence. So this really ups the game in the efficiency, the speed with which you can cut an already incredibly efficient joint. It's cool stuff. Pocket hole king. Let's do one here. Just do one here. There. There. It's so fast. And of course, as you saw in the video, the fence can be adjusted. This can be adjusted. We can accommodate different thicknesses of material. It is a crazy quick way to put pocket holes in to your work. Chris and Ernie, let's walk that way. Paul, how do you feel about setting your miter gauge to very precise angles?
It's not one of my top 10 favorite things to do. In fact, I would say it's probably one of my top 10 things to avoid because I don't have the confidence.
And I know when we were getting ready for this and we talked about the miter set, that this was kind of an epiphany for you, that what this provides and its ability to take that angst out of setting your miter gauge. What we're looking at here, it's such a brilliant idea, is a block. And in this one, there are a number of stops that provide stops for the angle at which you want to set your miter gauge. So this slot is for the bar of your miter gauge, and then we can put pins wherever we want it in order to get the angle that we want. So it's easy peasy stuff. Loosen the head of the miter gauge, do this, just push against those pins, and there you are. Got two different blocks here. This one is for setting to angles. This one is for setting to number of sides. So this is the one that we used in the video that you're about to see. The example was, I want to make something with 10 sides. You don't have to do any angular math in your head. All you have to do is put the pins 0 and 10, and that's going to automatically set you to the right angle. This one, if you want to hit degrees in between the whole numbers, it shows you there. That's what that bar is for. That bar is going to let you hit half-degree increments. Let's have a look at using this to make a 10. So what is a 10-sided thing? A tenagon or
Tenagon.
something? It's a tenagon. Let's look at making a tenagon. Part of the challenge with making a frame is getting the miters cut accurately so that when you bring the frame together, everything closes like it's supposed to. Miter set provides a really, really good solution to this problem in that this is a very accurately machined piece we can use to set your miter gauge. So here's how this works. You find the angle you want to set your miter gauge to. So let's say we want to use 30 degrees. One pin goes at 0. One pin goes at 30. And then the head of your miter gauge loose, you slide up against those pins, boom, boom, lock that down. It's at a perfect 30 degrees. Now, a good question would be, what if I want an in-between kind of an angle? If I want to hit 22.5, there's no mark on here for 22.5. That's what this bar is for. So that bar is going to let us do something like this and this and this, and hit angles that are the in-between angles in half-degree increments. So the concept is the same. Just follow the instructions in the owner's manual, and that's going to get you to incremental settings in between what you're seeing here. So that miter set standard is a very cool thing for setting your miter gauge in those applications. Now, let's go a step further. When you look at this, what do you see? Maybe see a 10-sided thingy. I'm a pretty avid bowl turner, and I see this as the beginning of a segmented bowl with 10 components to that segment, walnut and cherry. So there's another product That's this guy. This is based on the numbers here are based on how many segments do you want to incorporate into your work. So in this case, when we want to do 10, start in the same spot, 0, 10. You don't have to do any math to figure out what should the angle be for a 10 segment piece. You just use the numbers that are on the miter set your miter gauge, and you're ready to go. So I'm going to add a sacrificial fence to this, and then we'll come back. I'm going to reset my miter gauge to make sure I'm in just the right spot. We'll do some cuts so you can see how this all comes together. Going to do 10 segments again. And like I said, what's cool with this is no math, because all the math is included right there. Now, what I'm going to do to get going is I'm going to cut just an end on my cherry and walnut pieces so that I can then put that end against the stop block in order to make my subsequent cuts. At this stage of the game, I'm just going to do a bunch of cutting to get ready for actually making the segments we need. The other important thing to get the frame to come together correctly is to have uniform length on all our parts. I'm going to use a stop block for that. And we've got a 10 segment ring coming together. So I need 5 cherries, 5 walnuts. Proof is in the pudding. So what's cool about this is the more pieces we're cutting, if there's cumulative error, it's going to show up because of the number of joints that were cut in this 10 segment piece. So you can see from the joint quality here how accurately we're set up. Now, the way this would work for a segmented turning is glue this together, let that dry, send it through a drum sander to flatten it. Same thing here. And then I can start stacking these in order to create my bowl blank and have that really cool contrasting wood look, plus the kind of brick mold pattern that's coming around from doing the segment like that. So the miter set does a really, really good job of taking the guesswork out of getting your miter gauge set to just the right angle when you're doing frames like these. So one of the things I talked about in that video is the opportunity to use the miter set to make a bunch of rings and make that into a bowl blank. You and I are both avid turners. So after the video, I continued that work and made a laptop stand, apparently, which is actually that. Made a bunch more rings and then stacked them up. This is the beginning of a segmented bowl turning, which starts with being able to accurately cut angles so that we can glue up the rings, so we can glue the rings together. So to make this into a bowl blank, this will get a bottom glued to it. And then this whole assembly can go on the lathe. And think how cool that's going to look as a bowl, contrasting colors, lots of neat stuff going on there. And you don't have to hollow the inside. You're not putting a bunch of shavings on the floor going to waste because the inside is already hollow. I love the way that the miter set takes the guesswork out of setting your miter gauge to a specific angle. And the accuracy of that tool is crazy cool. It's really, really, really dialed in.
I wish I had one 25 years ago. You know, one of the most common questions we get is how do you determine the angle and how do you set up your tools to make cuts like that? And now I've got an answer.
Yep. And so many people want to make picture frames. It's such a common project that that entry point to being able to do that with the miter gauge on your table saw, great move. Walk this way. All right, so we did have a question from Mark back to the Grizzly planer, which is, since the bed raises and lowers, does that eliminate snipe? In the test cuts I did on that machine, there was no snipe in feed or out feed. So in other words, on either end of the board. So I would say yes. I mean, it's the machine, when I ran that machine, I didn't have any snipe issues at all. I'm going to refresh the page. And let's, we'll chat for a moment and see if any other preguntas, if any other questions come in. 4 cool products, huh?
Love it. I love the innovation that we have in this industry. And it's just so great to have them in here and showcased and just be able to see them as these emerging products are developed.
Well, and I like that we get the opportunity. I mean, Paul and I are both tool geeky enough. I'm speaking for you, but I think I can safely say that. Okay, that we're tool geeky enough that after literally decades of this, we still both really, really enjoy seeing this stuff, seeing new products, seeing innovation. It just never gets old. And this all started with the concept of woodworking shows being canceled. So we're going to bring the woodworking show to you. And that was a couple of years ago, right? 3 years ago. And here we are still doing the showcase. So it's great for us. We really enjoy getting our hands on the tools, running them, and then being able to bring that to you. Well, it looks like we have no new questions. So thanks as always, Paul, for coming and lending your significant insight into having a look at all of these products. And we're going to look forward to doing this again.
Can't wait. I love doing this.
Cool. Thanks for coming.